Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of TXN Sports World. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined by Michael Bullock. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. Good old MF Michael Fletcher will not be joining us this evening. He is not feeling well. I just got the message from him now. We're hopeful that he'll be back with us tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk. That's why we had planned on starting around 10 or so, but then I hadn't seen MF, and I reached out to him, make sure everything was all right before we started. And, well, MF is out, so Michael Bullock and I will be running the show this evening. The only downside about this tonight is that because MF is out, we will not have a Big Three basketball report. Maybe MF. It's probably nothing. All right. But with that being said, let's get into our docket for this evening. Let's start it off with Baker Mayfield, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns agreed to trade quarterback Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers last Wednesday for a 2024 conditional draft pick. Panthers will pay $4.85 million of Mayfield's salary, while the Browns will pay $10.5 million, a source told Adam Schefter. Mayfield agreed to convert the remainder of his $18.8 million salary into incentives to facilitate the deal, which is pending a physical. Mayfield can earn back that money based on team performance, a source said. The Browns will receive a fourth or fifth round pick in 2024, depending on Mayfield's playing time in Carolina, a source told ESPN. For the pick to go to a fourth rounder, Mayfield would have to play 70% of the snaps, a league source told ESPN's David Newton. Mayfield, the number one overall pick in the 2018 draft, joins a Panthers team that already has Sam Darnold, the number 3 overall selection in 2018 on its quarterback depth chart. And the Panthers also selected Matt Corral in the 3rd round of this year's draft. The Panthers have no intention of trading Darnold after acquiring Mayfield, a league source told Newton.
The Affleck Prepaid Show. Affleck! Paul's about to suffer.
Okay, sorry about that. Now Mayfield and Darnold, who competed with each other to become the number 1 pick in 2018, will compete again in training camp to vie for the right to be the Panthers starter this season. If Mayfield wins the job, his first starting assignment will be against the Browns, who are scheduled to visit Carolina in Week 1. The Browns are currently 1-point favorites at Caesars Sportsbook. Panthers quarterbacks posted a 30.3 QBR last season, which ranked 30th in the NFL according to ESPN Stats and Information Research. Mayfield had a 35.1 QBR last season, ranking 27th of the 31 qualified quarterbacks, while Darnold was the only non-rookie with a lower QBR. With the trade, Carolina Super Bowl odds went from 125-1 to 100-1 at Caesars Sportsbook, while its odds to win the NFC jumped from 60-1 to 50-1, and to win the NFC South from 12-1 to 11-1. The Mayfield trade comes on the heels of Cleveland's blockbuster deal with the Houston Texans that landed quarterback Deshaun Watson. The Browns gave Watson a new 5-year deal worth $230 million, fully guaranteed, the richest deal in guaranteed money in NFL history by an $80 million margin. Cleveland also surrendered 3 first-round picks in the deal, the first team to do so for a single player since the Minnesota Vikings traded 3 first-rounders to the Dallas Cowboys for running back Herschel Walker in 1989. With Mayfield gone, the Browns now have starter Watson along with Jacoby Brissett and Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And the Watson trade effectively ended the Mayfield era in Cleveland, and the Browns selected the former Heisman winner at number 1 in 2018 and made his debut in Week 3 that season off the bench and rallied the Browns to their first victory in 635 days. He went on to finish second in the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year voting, while breaking the NFL rookie record with 27 touchdowns. That record was later broken in 2020 by the LA Chargers' Justin Herbert, who finished with 31 touchdown passes.
Celebrate all birthdays like their 21st.
Mayfield's tenure overall, however, was marred by inconsistency, drama, and a left shoulder injury that plagued him throughout the 2021 season. Over his 4 years in Cleveland, Mayfield, according to multiple sources, had grown increasingly frustrated with a franchise that had made him the 4th quarterback in NFL history to play for 4 different head coaches in his first 3 seasons. Even after Mayfield led the Browns to their first playoff win in 26 years during the 2020 season, the team declined to engage Mayfield's camp about a potential contract extension once he became eligible for one, a signal to Mayfield he might not be in the team's long-term plans. And then Mayfield suffered a torn labrum to his non-throwing left shoulder week 2 of last season. And instead of sitting out or undergoing season-ending surgery, Mayfield played through the injury and struggled for much of the season. One season after finishing in the top 10 in QBR in 2020, he fell all the way to 27th. Last year, the largest QBR drop-off, 30.4, of any passer in the league, according to the ESPN Stats and Information Research. Still, over the last 2 months, Browns coach Kevin Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry reportedly have publicly affirmed that Mayfield would remain their quarterback. And at the NFL Combine in February, Berry told Mayfield's agent the Browns might pursue an elite-level quarterback, such as Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, according to a source familiar with the conversation. And Mayfield's camp was also aware that shortlist could eventually include Watson, even with everything that he's going through right now with all those allegations. Multiple sources told ESPN that Mayfield was angered that the Browns didn't inform him directly that they would be meeting with Watson. Instead, he found out about it over social media. Mayfield responded with a statement that night thanking the city of Cleveland and its fans who truly embraced who I am, while Browns officials were flying back from Houston. The breaking point in all of this came later that week. March 16th, Chris Mortensen reported a Browns source had told him that the team wanted to replace Mayfield with, quote-unquote, an adult at that position. Mayfield requested a trade the next day. Browns initially told him they were not accommodating his request, but after Cleveland landed Watson, Mayfield became expendable. And as a result, Mayfield becomes just the third quarterback in NFL history to go number 1 overall in the draft and last 4 or fewer seasons with the team that drafted him, according to ESPN Stats and Information, joining Jamarcus Russell with the then Oakland Raiders and Jeff George with the Indianapolis Colts. It's a very interesting situation, to say the very least, and, it definitely makes that Cleveland-Carolina game on opening day even more interesting than it was before. And with Baker going to Carolina, you would have to imagine Sam Darnold's job's now in jeopardy, because Darnold was the man last year, and we're just gonna have to wait and see, because training camp's going to be starting up pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks, and then before you know it, preseason will be here, and I'm sure in the preseason that's when we'll know: is it still Sam Darnold's team, or will it be Baker Mayfield's team? We're going to have to keep a very close eye on that. But a very dicey situation, to say the very least. And Carolina may end up getting the better out of it, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson after all the allegations against him. So we got to wait and see what happens. But for right now, it's a great trade for Carolina, and, we'll have to wait and see. So will it lead to immediate success? I don't know. I don't think so, considering who else is in that division, especially a certain GOAT who's in that division. So they're not going to win the division. I mean, they might be in the hunt, but I think they're probably more in the hunt for potentially a wild card beyond anything else. But that's really the best I can see. So not much more to say here. Michael Bullock, come on in. Baker Mayfield, now a Carolina Panther. And that Cleveland-Carolina game coming up in week 1 at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte just got even more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely got more interesting for this week 1 matchup. But, yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, let's just say he was sort of 50-50 in his career with the Cleveland Browns, but let's not forget one thing. He did lead the Browns to the playoffs in 2020, and of course, they came this close to upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs. In that divisional round matchup, that would have been something, but obviously, once the Browns obviously got Deshaun Watson, you knew that they were gonna have to trade him, and that's eventually what they did. But now the problem for Cleveland, Anthony, is because we've still yet to hear what sort of punishment that Deshaun Watson's going to have. Because if Watson is suspended for any length of time, let's say the entire season, then what do they do? I mean, I don't know who else is the quarterback on that team. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But yeah, definitely week one's going to be very interesting. And Baker Mayfield's going to have a huge chip on his shoulder if he does get the start in week one. And he'll want to prove to Cleveland why it was a big mistake for them to trade him. So we'll wait and see. So there's really nothing more to say. So let's move on.
All right. We got NHL free agency. We're going to get into the notable free agents here. Of course, if you saw good old MF Michael Fletcher, he did a TikTok video talking about Evgeny Malkin staying with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And all right, so NHL free agency underway. And I'm just gonna, now keep in mind, we're only gonna be talking about the notable ones here. And we gotta start right away with Johnny Gaudreau signing with the Columbus Blue Jackets on a 7-year, $68.25 million deal. Andre Palat, formerly of the Tampa Bay Lightning, he is now a New Jersey Devil. 5-year, $30 million deal. Darcy Kemper, who was the starting goaltender and just led the Colorado Avalanche to the Stanley Cup, he's now signed with the Washington Capitals. 5-year, $26.25 million deal. Andrew Kopp, who was one of the unsung heroes of the New York Rangers playoff run this past spring, he's got a new team. He signed with the Detroit Red Wings. 5-year, $28.125 million contract. But the Rangers did get a big bounce back, and that is Vincent Trocheck. They signed Vincent Trocheck from the Carolina Hurricanes, a 7-year, $39.375 million contract. Claude Giroux has found another new team. He's now signed with the Ottawa Senators. 3-year, $19.5 million contract. Jack Campbell has now signed with the Edmonton Oilers. 5-year, $25 million contract. Josh Manson re-signs with the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. 4-year, $18 million deal. Evander Kane re-signing with the Edmonton Oilers. 4-year, $20.4 million deal. Evgeny Malkin, as I mentioned, 4-year, $24.4 million deal, as reported by good old MF Michael Fletcher on his TikTok. Rickard Reichel re-signs with the Pittsburgh Penguins, 6-year, $30 million deal. Valerie Nichushkin staying with the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche, 8-year, $49 million deal. Philip Forsberg staying in Nashville, 8-year, $68 million deal. Dylan Strome has signed a one-year, $3.5 million deal with Washington. And the Predators, Nashville Predators, have signed Kevin Lankinen, a 1-year, $1.5 million deal to be UC Saros' backup. Senators have signed forward Josh Norris to an 8-year, $63.6 million deal. And I think I've pretty much covered all of the notable. I've set up all the notables here. So Michael Bullock, you've heard the names, you've heard the terms. What stands out to you out of all those notable names?
I'll tell you what. I mean, the Penguins re-signing Yevgeny Malkin, I think, is a big deal. I mean, to keep him with that team. I mean, especially with Crosby, and yeah, I mean, that's going to be a huge thing for the Penguins. The Goudreau signing, I think, is definitely a good signing. And yeah, I mean, Claude Giroux going to the Senators. I mean, what a boost he'll be to them. And of course, yeah, with the New York Rangers, I mean, obviously losing one player and then signing another, that's definitely something there. So yeah, so the Giroux um and Goudreau and the obviously the getting Malkin, those are the ones that really interest me. So there's really nothing more for me to say. So Florio, all I can say is this free agency has definitely gone off to a crazy start.
It certainly has. And Johnny Gaudreau, holy smokes, who saw this coming, man? I mean, it seemed like Gaudreau was destined to either be a New Jersey Devil or a New York Islander, and at the last second, the Columbus Blue Jackets swooped in and stole him away. And Gaudreau is an elite playmaker and has produced like a top 10 forward in the league for quite some time now. While some are questioning Gaudreau's decision to sign with Columbus, considering it's not home to him, and that was the whole motivation for him not re-signing in Calgary, no one is questioning the deal the Blue Jackets gave him. Andre Palat, who single-handedly led the Tampa Bay Lightning's epic comeback against the New York Rangers in the conference finals a month and change ago. He's now in New Jersey. I mean, it was kind of expecting that Palat would get overpaid, and he secures the bag from the Devils after they missed out on Gaudreau. This is a great signing for New Jersey, who get an all-around excellent player with playoff experience, but he's not the over-the-top game-changing player they were hoping to get. The Devils had to make a move with Gaudreau signing with the Blue Jackets, and they have the cap space to afford to overpay Andre Palat. Darcy Kemper, last big name goalie off the board. He's heading to the Capitals as expected. He was one of the better goalies in the league last season. Was a little shaky at times during the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's definitely some risk here, considering at least some of his success came from playing behind an outstanding Avs defense. But it's a good deal for a Washington team looking to make a couple more playoff runs while with Alexander Ovechkin still playing. Andrew Kopp to Detroit. Bringing in Kopp solidifies the Red Wings' second-line center behind Dylan Larkin, and what he brings to the table certainly should get in nicely with Detroit. Kopp raised his value after finding success with the New York Rangers post-trade deadline. However, he's basically had less than half a season and one playoff run as a top six guy. With this contract, the Red Wings are showing they have confidence that Kopp can continue to produce in the top six, but there is some risk there. Vincent Trocheck to the New York Rangers. On the surface, 7 years is a lot of years. Trocheck is 29 years old, has been a fine center, but that's a big commitment to a player at his best as a second-line center. However, the AAV is at $5.65 million a year, which is very reasonable for a player like Trocheck. The Rangers find their replacement of Ryan Strome going all in on Trocheck to play down the middle behind Mika Zibanejad. Giroux, as expected, going to the Ottawa Senators. 3 years, it's a bit of a surprise considering he's 34 years old, but $6.5 million a year is a great deal, and that gives the Senators an extremely talented top six forward group as GM Pierre Dorian continues to be aggressive this offseason. Senators are winning this summer so far. We might have to keep an eye on them next season. Jack Campbell going to Edmonton. Had a roller coaster of a season last season. He was sensational early, but his play greatly decreased by the new year. It gives the Oilers their goalie in net with Mike Smith's future in question. It's definitely a risk paying a guy that has very little experience as a number one goalie his kind of money in term. Josh Manson staying in Colorado. Manson was great coming over from the Anaheim Ducks at the deadline to the Avs and certainly played a part in the team winning the Stanley Cup. However, he was mostly a third pairing guy with Colorado, with Cale Makar, Devin Tays, and Bowen Byram making up most of the top four. There's a chance once Eric Johnson retires that Manson can slide up a paying a third pair defenseman $4.5 million a year as an overpay. Evander Kane staying in Edmonton. Kane immediately found success with Edmonton after he signed midseason with the Oilers. Playing alongside Connor McDavid, he gave the speedy center of an excellent goal-scoring option on the wing, who is pain in the butt for opponents to play against. Kane finished the playoffs tied with Colorado's Nathan MacKinnon for the most goals. The fit makes too much sense for Kane, and it doesn't come at a huge cost for Edmonton. Malkin staying with Pittsburgh. Was Malkin really ever going to leave? I mean, roughly 24 hours after it was reported Malkin would test free agency, the two sides agreed on a contract extension. It has the 4 years and no move clause that Malkin wanted, and 6.1 AAV is a very good deal for the Penguins. Pittsburgh fans can thank Sidney Crosby, who reportedly helped the two sides come to an agreement. Rickard Rakell also staying in Pittsburgh. I mean, at first, I was a little iffy about it because the Pens looked like they were going to lose Malkin, but with the re-signing of Malkin, it gives Rakell a playmaker center, which he desperately needs in order to succeed. I'm not really crazy about the length and AAV for a player whose numbers have declined the last few years, but with Malkin playing as his center, Rakell could certainly should see better offensive numbers. He played pretty well after coming over at the deadline. Valeri Nichushkin staying with Colorado. 8 years is a lot for a guy who had not hit 30 points in the season until this year. But offense is not Nichushkin's specialty. He's a dominant forechecking defensive forward who was a pain in the butt to play against. The Avs certainly had to overpay a bit to keep Nichushkin, but as long as he is playing with stars like Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, or Gabriel Landeskog, he should continue to produce. And Philip Forsberg re-signing with Nashville. Predators already lacking in top six skaters, and losing their best goal scorer would have hurt them over more. Securing Forsberg long-term in Nashville ensures that they have one of the game's best offensive weapons. The 27-year-old coming off a career year with 84 points. And those are my, standouts when it comes to NHL free agency. So, we'll see if anything else comes of this in the coming weeks. So with that, let's get into the other big story in the NHL recently, and that is the recent release of the next season's NHL schedule. That came out recently, and the 2022-23 NHL season will begin in North America with back-to-back doubleheaders televised in the United States, starting with an Eastern Conference Finals rematch with the New York Rangers hosting the three-time defending conference champion Tampa Bay Lightning on Tuesday, October 11th. And then the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche will raise their banner the next night before their game against the Chicago Blackhawks. The October 11th doubleheader, which will also feature the Vegas Golden Knights facing the Los Angeles Kings, will be on ESPN. And the Wednesday, October 12th doubleheader, which will also include Michael Bullock, your Boston Bruins, taking on the Washington Capitals, will be on TNT. The NHL previously announced the Nashville Predators and San Jose Sharks will begin the regular season with 2 games in the 2022 NHL Global Series at O2 Arena in Prague on October 7th, on Friday, October 7th, and October 8th, Saturday, October 8th, around Columbus Day weekend, each at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Those will be the NHL's first games in Europe since 2019, following a 2-season break because of the coronavirus pandemic. The Global Series also includes 2 games between the Colorado Avalanche and the Columbus Blue Jackets at Nokia Arena in Tampere, Finland on November 4th and 5th. The Lightning will visit the Rangers at Madison Square Garden in a rematch of the Eastern Conference Final, which Tampa Bay won in 6 games, before the Golden Knights visit the Kings at Crypto.com Arena. The Bruins will visit the Capitals at Capital One Arena October 12th, 7 p.m. Eastern, before the Avalanche hoist their third championship banner. Colorado, of course, also won the Cup in 1996 and 2001 and host the Blackhawks at Bowl Arena in Denver at 9:30 that night. The October 12th slate also features a doubleheader on Sportsnet in Canada, with the Toronto Maple Leafs visiting the Montreal Canadiens at Bell Center at 7 Eastern, followed by the Vancouver Canucks versus the Edmonton Oilers at Rogers Place in Edmonton, 10 p.m. Eastern. Other highlights on the schedule include the 2022 NHL Thanksgiving Showdown doubleheader on TNT on Black Friday, November 25th. 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the Pittsburgh Penguins visiting the Philadelphia Flyers at Wells Fargo Arena, and the Tampa Bay Lightning hosting the St. Louis Blues at Amalie Arena in Tampa at 7:30. The 2023 Discover NHL Winter Classic between Michael Bullock's Boston Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins at Fenway Park in Boston, home of the Boston Red Sox, on Monday, January 2nd, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hockey Day in Canada, with all 7 Canada-based teams in action on January 21st. Florida Panthers hosting the 2023 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend at FLA Live Arena, featuring the All-Star Skills Competition on February 3rd and the All-Star Game on February 4th. A rematch of the Stanley Cup Finals when the Colorado Avalanche visit the Tampa Bay Lightning at Amalie Arena in Tampa on February the 9th at 7 Eastern. And then they will meet again in Denver 5 days later on Valentine's Day, February 14th at 9 p.m. Eastern. The 2023 Navy Federal Credit Union NHL Stadium Series between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals at Carter Finley Stadium on the campus of North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina on February 18th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Each of the 32 teams plays 3 or 4 games against the 7 other teams in its division, 3 games against the 8 teams in the other division in its conference, and 2 games against the 16 teams from the other conference. Regular season concludes with 15 games on April 13th. So that's the story. And of course, right out of the box, you see the Tampa Bay Lightning against the New York Rangers. You know the Rangers and their fans will have revenge on their mind, obviously. And Bullock's Bruins open up against the Washington Capitals. That should be a good one. And the Avs will be raising their 3rd Stanley Cup banner into the hallowed halls of the Ball Arena, formerly the Pepsi Center in Denver, against the Chicago Blackhawks. And of course, looking forward to a lot of great things to look forward to here. Canada doubleheader, the Thanksgiving Showdown, a doubleheader. Usually we only had one of those games, but now we're going to have a doubleheader on TNT. A couple of good matchups there with Pittsburgh and Philly and St. Louis and Tampa. Winter Classic, we all know that's always fun. But this one should be especially fun. Pittsburgh and Boston in Fenway. I mean, you know Bullock's going to be all over that one. No question about it. All-Star Weekend, always fun. Of course, the skills competition and the All-Star Game, you know, the 3-on-3 tournament format where the winning division gets $1 million. Stanley Cup Final rematch. They're going to be meeting twice within a 5-day stretch. That's very interesting. Usually it's every few months, but I'm surprised they're doing it that quickly. And Carolina and Washington on the campus of NC State. I mean, that's going to be fun. Can't wait to see how that turns out. And you know, all the other schedules are out. Check your local teams' sites, and you'll find out when they'll be getting it on. And speaking of the NHL schedule, I know we don't talk about preseason, but we got something very special within our circle here. As Tuesday night, September 27th, me and MF, our team, the New York Rangers, against Michael Bullock and his Boston Bruins, TD Garden. And we're going to be taking a very special road trip that night. And it's going to be a thrill for me. And I've never been to an NHL game. I don't think Bullock has either. And, you know, it's going to be a great thrill for us to be together. And some members of MF's 2184 crew will be there. And, you know, it's going to be a great night. And I'm already looking forward to it. That's 2.5 months or so away. And maybe a preseason game, but who cares? I mean, it's been a bucket list year already for me anyway. Going to WrestleMania Backlash in May, my first WWE pay-per-view. And now going to TD Garden for the first time. I mean, it's going to be a sight to behold. And I cannot wait until we get to that day. So that day cannot come fast enough. So it's going to be a great NHL season. Looking forward to it. It all starts around Columbus Day or so. And the quest for the cup will begin. So not much more to say. Michael Bullock, come on in. You heard all the notable dates and matchups, and of course your Bruins will be going up against the Washington Capitals. Always a tough game, and but of course the big highlight for you, I know, will be seeing your Bruins hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins at Fenway in the Winter Classic.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, some of the highlights for me, obviously, opening night, of course, of the NHL season. Obviously, of course, the Bruins opening up the season against the Washington Capitals, like you said, and of course the return of the Global Series, because we haven't had that obviously since the start of the pandemic. It's good to have that back. Of course, the Thanksgiving Showdown, the two games you obviously mentioned. But of course, the one I'm going to be definitely looking forward to, obviously, like you said, the Winter Classic, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Boston Bruins at Fenway Park. Of course, the last time the Winter Classic was at Fenway Park, it was a really good game between the Flyers and the Bruins, and of course the Bruins winning that one in overtime. And of course, you got the Stanley Cup Final rematch with the Avalanche and the Lightning, so that's going to be intriguing. So, yeah, and of course I think you got some of the outdoor games that are going to be going on as well. So this definitely has the makings for an intriguing upcoming season, Florio. So there's really nothing more to say. Let's move right on.
And we're going to be talking about the notable NBA free agents. And that's what we're going to get into. I mean, NBA free agency has been a frenzy since the moment the clock struck midnight Thursday, June 30th, as several star athletes agreed to record-setting deals to stay the faces of their respective franchises, and a few recognizable players will be suiting up for new teams next season. And Bullock, I'll set it up for you before I give it to you. Phoenix Suns star Devin Booker agreed on a 4-year, $224 million Supermax extension. Memphis Grizzlies star Ja Morant agreed to terms on a 4-year designated rookie extension, likely worth $226 million. Denver Nuggets star Nikola Jokic agreed to the richest contract in NBA history, a 5-year, $264 million Supermax extension. And Minnesota Timberwolves star Karl Anthony Towns agreed on a 4-year, $224 million Supermax extension. Meanwhile, the biggest storyline of the summer is still in flux and has the basketball world refreshing Twitter timelines, waiting for more news. Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant asked team owner Joe Tsai for a trade on June 30th, listing the Miami Heat and the Phoenix Suns as his preferred destinations. Durant's teammate Kyrie Irving opted into his $36.5 million player option June 27th, but now his future in Brooklyn seems uncertain, as ESPN's Brian Windhorst reported that Durant and Irving still want to play together, just not in Brooklyn. Elsewhere in the NBA, James Harden, $47.4 million, and Bradley Beal, $36.4 million, both declined their player options on the eve of free agency. Beal signed a 5-year, $251 million contract with the Washington Wizards minutes into free agency, but no deal has been done for Harden. And, of course, one other big news story, the Phoenix Suns matched the Indiana Pacers' 4-year, $133 million offer sheet for restricted free agent center DeAndre Ayton, clearing the way for him to return to the franchise. His agents Bill Duffy and Nima Namakian told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. And the Utah Jazz no longer simply dismissing calls on trade offers for star guard Donovan Mitchell. Rival teams say the Jazz are showing a willingness to listen on Mitchell offers, but their asking price appears to be steep. Jazz traded center Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves on July 1st for a package that included 4 future first-round picks and the number 22 pick from the 2022 NBA draft, Walker Kessler. And those are, and then also on July 8th, Damian Lillard signed a 2-year, $122 million extension with the Portland Trail Blazers. That new contract begins with the 2025-26 seasons and includes an option for the 26-27 season. And those are pretty much the notable free agent moves that I've gotten a hold of on my end. So, Michael Bullock, if I missed anything, feel free to let me know. Or if not, then you heard all the names and all the deals and the terms. Your standouts for NBA free agency thus far.
Yeah, I mean the obviously the Grizzlies signing Ja Morant to a 4-year rookie extension. I mean, obviously that's big because he's definitely been one of their big time players and what was responsible for them being on in the playoffs. And obviously the Suns obviously making some names, some headlines, obviously with getting their star Devontae Booker signed to a 4-year extension. And of course, as of today, DeAndre Ayton, he's staying around, obviously, because they matched that offer from the Indiana Pacers. So they got 2 key players back. So hopefully that could definitely help them in the hopefully go on another deep playoff run next season. And of course, Nikola Jokic signing a record extension. I mean, showing how big he is to the Denver Nuggets, and yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of big things going down with this with free agency, and definitely still a lot to be determined in the off season. Like you said, Durant and Irving. I mean, could they be playing somewhere else next season? I mean, because I've been hearing maybe Irving going to the Lakers to reunite with LeBron James and Kevin Durant. I mean, so many big teams being mentioned, including reuniting with the Golden State Warriors, and of course the Miami Heat also have interest in them. So yeah, this definitely has the makings of a pretty busy offseason in the NBA as we look forward to next season. So it's yours, Florio.
All right. This would have been where MF would have provided us his latest Big 3 basketball report. But since he's out, we'll be doing that another night, maybe tomorrow in a crossover on the Cerebral Smack Talk, or maybe on this show next week and do another super report next week. But with that, we are going to get into our main event of the evening, which is the 2022 Home Run Derby. We got our 8. We have our 8 men who will be competing in the Home Run Derby on this upcoming Monday night, actually. And And the matchups are as follows. I had it for a moment. All right, it's going to be the number 1 seed, Kyle Schwarber, squaring off against from the Philadelphia Phillies, squaring off against the number 8 seed, the ageless wonder, Albert Pujols, and that's going to be one of the matchups there. And then from there, all right. It will be the number 4 seed, Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals, squaring off against the number 5 seed, Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. The number 3 seed is Corey Seager of the Texas Rangers. He'll be squaring off against Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners. And then rounding it out, an MF special in the 2-7 matchup. The number 2 seed, the defending back-to-back home run derby champion, Pete Alonso of the New York Mets, squaring off against the number 7 seed, Ronald Acuna Jr. from good old MF Michael Fletcher's World Series champion Atlanta Braves. Bullock, you see the matchups? Home run derby. What do you think? Who do you like in these matchups, and who do you ultimately like to take it all?
Boy, I'll tell you what. I mean, you definitely see some intriguing matchups when it comes to this this home run derby, and yeah, I mean, there are a lot of good matchups when it comes to this. Yeah, let me take a look at this first. Let me pull it up. So give me a second here. I mean, yeah, you got the number 1 seed, Kyle Schwarber of the Phillies. I mean, against the number 8 seed Albert Pujols, and can you imagine this, Florio? I mean, can you imagine if Albert Pujols in his final home run derby? Could you imagine if he somehow pulls this off? I mean, that would be something. But he's definitely got a tough. He's got a tough matchup with Schwarber. Of course, as of today, of course, he has 28 homers, leading the National League in that category. I mean, and this isn't his first go around in the home run derby, because he did it in 2018 and made it to the finals. So yeah, and of course you got the number 2 seed, the defending home run derby champion, Pete Alonso, the polar bear. He's looking to become the 3rd player ever to win back-to-back derby titles. And as of this, I mean, yeah, I mean, he's definitely got to be one of the favorites. Of course, going up against the number 7 seed, Ronald Acuna Jr., so that could be something worth watching. So, and this is interesting because Pete Alonso, I mean, in 2019 in the second round, Florio, who was Acuna eliminated by?
I believe that would be Pete Alonso.
Yeah, so Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be wanting a little bit of payback for this. So we'll see what happens with this. And of course, Corey Seager, you got the number 3 seed Corey Seager in there, taking on. I mean, what a rookie season for this guy that's in it. Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners. So yeah, I mean, Corey Seager. I mean, he had a little bit of a slow start for Texas, but he's already got 21 home runs already, so we'll see how he definitely does. And like I said, Julio Rodriguez, I mean, he's had some big time bombs, and what a season he has. And of course, you got Juan Soto making his second straight appearance. Of course, you got the number 4 seed against the number 5 seed Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. So, and of course, Juan Soto, I mean, he's had some monster shots in his career. And of course, Jose Ramirez, I mean, he's making his debut in the home run derby. He's already got 17, so man, I mean, I got to be quite honest with you, Florio. I mean, it's tough to pick. It's tough to pick who's going to come out of this. I mean, any of them could come out of it. But if I have to go with who I think is going to come out on top of this, I'm going to go with Kyle Schwarber. I mean, it's some massive bombs, and I mean, don't be surprised if Pete Alonso definitely gives him. I think it's going to be Alonso and Schwarber in the finals, but I think Schwarber's going to pull it out. So, I mean, do I think Pete Alonso would come out of this? I would not be surprised whatsoever. So I'm going with Schwarber. Florio, it is yours.
All right, so let me break it down for you. Kyle Schwarber, who entered today, leading the National League with 28 home runs, will be making his second Derby appearance. He memorably made it to the finals of the 2018 event while with the Chicago Cubs, clubbing 55 homers on the night while beating the Astros' Alex Bregman and future Phillies teammate Rhys Hoskins before falling to another future teammate, Bryce Harper, at Nationals Park. Albert Pujols, after a 7-year hiatus, the 42-year-old Pujols will return to the home run derby stage in his final major league season. It's his 5th appearance, which puts him on an elite list of only 6 others who have competed in the event at least that many times. Listen to this lineup bullet: Ken Griffey Jr., Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Prince Fielder, Barry Bonds, and David Ortiz. With 684 home runs to his name, the 5th most all time, Pujols may just take the young sluggers to school in Los Angeles. Pete Alonso, the polar bear, has won the last 2 Derby titles, making him just the 3rd player ever to go back-to-back, joining Ken Griffey Jr. in 1998 and 1999, and Yoenis Cespedes in 2013 and 14. Now he will have his sights set on a 3rd Derby win, which would match Ken Griffey Jr. for the most by any player. Alonso has bashed 131 homers in his 2 Derby appearances and set a single-round record in 2021 when he went deep 35 times in his first-round matchup against Salvador Perez. Ronald Acuna Jr. making his 2nd trip to the Derby. He was ousted by Alonso in the 2nd round in 2019. The Brave star still made a strong impression, utilizing the entire field to crack 44 homers. 10 of his home runs traveled at least 450 feet, and he topped out at 469. He leads the majors in average home run distance this year and is clearly comfortable on the Derby stage, and as he has shown, he can multitask while hitting massive dingers. Corey Seager, the Rangers' all-star shortstop, will be making his 2nd Derby appearance. Seager took part in the contest in 2016, his rookie season. The 28-year-old returns to the park he called home for 7 seasons before departing for Texas, Dodger Stadium. Despite a slow start, Seager is well on his way to setting a career high in home runs this season. He already has 21, career high 26, including 6 here in July. Julio Rodriguez has been ready for the Derby ever since he hit his first home run in the majors, a 450-foot clout off Miami Marlins ace Sandy Alcantara on May 1st. The AL Rookie of the Month for June, Rodriguez is the first rookie to take part in the Derby since Pete Alonso and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. participated and reached the finals in 2019. Alonso and Aaron Judge are the only rookies to win the competition outright, while Wally Joyner was a rookie co-champ with Darryl Strawberry in 1986. As the 14th rookie in history to participate in the event, J-Rod's electric personality and thunderous bat are perfect for this showcase event. Juan Soto makes his second straight Derby appearance after putting on a show in his debut last year. Though we entered an underdog as the number 8 seed in 2021, Soto unseeded number 1 seed Shohei Ohtani in an epic battle that took a swing off to the side. The National Slugger is sure to once again flash his prodigious power, though whether or not he will top his record-setting 520-foot shot from the Colorado event last year remains to be seen. Jose Ramirez, Cleveland's slugging star, will be making his Derby debut after turning down the opportunity a few times previously. He's coming off a 2021 season in which he launched 36 homers, second most in his career, and he already has 17 this year. A candidate for AL MVP through the first half of 2022, Ramirez leads the AL in RBIs with 68 and injects some more star power into the stacked Derby field. And that's the breakdown. So upon looking at the bracket, I'll say it like this. As great of a story as it is to see Albert Pujols in this thing and to see him go on a good run here, I got to go with Kyle Schwarber in that first matchup. As far as Soto and Ramirez go, that's a good matchup, but I got to give a slight edge to Juan Soto in that one. 3-6, I got to go with the experience. I got to go with Corey Seager to come out of that one. And then 2-7, with all due respect to MF and his Braves, I mean, it would be a great story to see Acuna go on a good run here, especially after the Braves, went on that magical World Series run last fall. But I got to go with Pete Alonso to come out of that one. And then that would give us Schwarber against Soto and Alonso against Seager. That first one could go either way, but I gotta take a chance here, and I gotta go with Schwarber to come out of that matchup. And then Soto, and then Alonso and Seager. I'm going with Alonso to win that one, setting up Schwarber and Alonso. And with all due respect, Michael Bullock, I respectfully disagree with you. I'm going with Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has made this his event the last 2 years. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again this year. Until he loses, I cannot go against him. So I'm going with Pete Alonso to win the 2022 T-Mobile Home Run Derby. And you can watch that this Monday night at 8 p.m. On ESPN, of course, from the legendary Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. I know Bullock and I are going to be very busy on that night. Wink, wink. So with that being said, one last order of business this evening, and that is the announcement of the full American League and National League All-Star rosters for the All-Star game that will take place this Tuesday night, of course, also at Dodger Stadium. It's the first time since 1980 that this game will be played in Washington, in Los Angeles, rather. So the full All-Star teams have been unveiled. They announced the full All-Star rosters this past Sunday, adding the pitchers and reserves to the fan-elected starting lineups that were revealed last Friday. This year's roster includes legends of the game, Miguel Cabrera, 12th selection, Albert Pujols, 11th, perennial All-Stars such as Mike Trout, 10th, and his 9th fan-elected start, Justin Verlander and Clayton Kershaw, with their 9th, Jose Altuve with his 8th, and a host of new faces. And all right, and here's the breakdown. Of course, for the American League, the starters, catcher Alejandro Kirk and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first base, both from the Toronto Blue Jays. Second base, Jose Altuve from the Houston Astros. Third base, Rafael Devers of Michael Bullock's Boston Red Sox. Shortstop, Tim Anderson of the Chicago White Sox. In the outfield, you got Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and a pair of New York Yankees, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. And at designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. There's no doubt in the star power of this year's American League lineup. It starts with Aaron Judge, who earned an automatic spot in the AL starting lineup as the top American League vote getter in phase 1 of voting. As of this update, Judge leads all of baseball with 30 homers and is tied for third in RBI with 65 and fourth in OPS with 980. Judge will be joined in the outfield by fellow Yankee Giancarlo Stanton and Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The Yankees are sending a league-high 6 players to the All-Star game. Trout's ninth straight All-Star game, the longest streak among active players. He'll be joined in the All-Star game by fellow Angels Shohei Ohtani, who was selected as both a pitcher and hitter for the second straight year. Ohtani, who posted a historic MVP season in 2021, has matched 19 homers at the plate this year and recorded a 2.44 ERA in 14 starts. Ohtani started last year's All-Star game and picked up the win on the mound. He was a fan-selected DH and MLB-selected pitcher. The only other team with multiple starters is the Toronto Blue Jays, who will be represented by Alejandro Kirk and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Kirk, the only first-time All-Star in the American League starting lineup, leads all qualified catchers in batting average .310 and already has career highs in home runs with 10 and RBIs 33. Second straight All-Star game for Guerrero Jr., who won MVP honors in last year's Midsummer Classic after he smashed a mammoth home run off Corbin Burns. At 23 years old, Guerrero Jr. and Kirk are two of the youngest players on this year's roster. For the National League, at catcher, you've got Wilson Contreras from the Chicago Cubs. First base, Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals. Second base, Jazz Chisholm Jr. from the Miami Marlins. Third base, Manny Machado from the San Diego Padres. Shortstop, Trey Turner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. In the outfield, you've got Ronald Acuna Jr. of the World Series champion Atlanta Braves. Mookie Betts from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jock Peterson from the San Francisco Giants. And at designated hitter, you got Bryce Harper of the Philadelphia Phillies, and you've also got William Contreras of the Atlanta Braves. Dodgers fans who plan on making the trek to Dodger Stadium for this year's All-Star game will not be disappointed, as LA is the only National League team to boast multiple players in this year's starting lineup in Betts and Trey Turner. 6th straight All-Star game for Betts, including his second straight for LA, and the second straight All-Star game for Turner, who made it as a Washington National last year. Ronald Acuna Jr. earned an automatic All-Star berth as this year's top National League vote getter, batting .274 with 8 homers and 57 hits in 53 games. With this year's selection, Acuna becomes the first player to lead his league in All-Star voting in consecutive years since Albert Pujols did so with the St. Louis Cardinals in 2009 and 2010. The reigning NL MVP, Harper, won the fan-voted DH, but he will be inactive due to a fractured left thumb and replaced as the starter by the player-elected Contreras. That means both Contreras brothers will be all-star starters for the NL, William at DH and Wilson at catcher. They'll become the first brothers to appear in the same All-Star game since Aaron and Brett Boone in 2003. And the first brothers on the same team since Roberto and Sandy Alomar in 1998, and the first brothers to start alongside each other in the All-Star game since the Alomars in 92. This year marks Paul Goldschmidt's first All-Star appearance as a member of the Cardinals, as his last All-Star appearance came in 2018 as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Goldschmidt leads the National League in batting average .340, on base percentage .424, slugging .610, and OPS 1.034, while leading baseball in hits 107. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is the lone first-year All-Star in the National League starting lineup and the first ever All-Star from the Bahamas. He has a 139 OPS plus and leads NL second baseman in homers 14, RBIs 45, and stolen bases 12. Chisholm becomes the 6th Marlin to be voted in by the fans as an All-Star game starter, joining Hanley Ramirez, Giancarlo Stanton, D. Strange Gordon, Marcelo Zuna, and Gary Sheffield. He's rehabbing from a right lower back strain that has kept him sidelined since June 29th and may not be back in time for the All-Star game. For the pitchers, Paul Blackburn, for the American League, their pitchers, you have Paul Blackburn from the Oakland Athletics, Emmanuel Classy from the Cleveland Guardians, Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez, and Clay Holmes, all from the New York Yankees, Jorge Lopez from the Baltimore Orioles, Alek Manoah from the Toronto Blue Jays, Shane McClanahan from the Tampa Bay Rays, Shohei Ohtani, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Martin Perez, Texas Rangers, Gregory Soto, Detroit Tigers, and Framber Valdez and Justin Verlander of the American League champion Houston Astros. 39-year-old Verlander, who has a major league leading 11 wins and a 2 ERA, adds another highlight to his remarkable comeback season from Tommy John surgery. It's his 9th career All-Star team, tied for the most among active pitchers, with fellow 2022 All-Star Clayton Kershaw. Joining Verlander on the staff is the first-time All-Star AL ERA leader and MLB strikeout leader McClanahan, 1.73 ERA and 141 Ks. There are also a trio of Yankees, their ace Garrett Cole, who's an All-Star for our second straight season with New York, and breakout first-time All-Stars Nestor Cortez and Clay Holmes. Nasty Nestor is 7-3 with a 2.74 ERA and 95 strikeouts. And Holmes might be the best reliever in baseball with a 0.46 ERA and 16 saves. For the National League pitching staff, you have Sandy Alcantara from the Miami Marlins, David Bednar of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers, Luis Castillo of the Cincinnati Reds, Edwin Diaz from the New York Mets, Max Fried from the World Series champion Atlanta Braves, Tony Gonsolin of the Los Angeles Dodgers, along with Clayton Kershaw, Josh Hader of the Milwaukee Brewers, Ryan Helsey of the St. Louis Cardinals, Joe Manaply of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Joe Musgrove of the San Diego Padres. Kershaw keeps pace with Justin Verlander as a 9-time All-Star, but the ace to watch on the All-Star team right now is Sandy Alcantara, who's having a brilliant season for the Miami Marlins. The 26-year-old is 9-3 with a 1.73 ERA, 111 strikeouts, and a Major League Baseball leading 130 innings pitched. And he's pitched 2 complete games, thrown 8+ innings in 8 starts, and gone at least 7 innings in 12 straight starts. The reigning NL Cy Young Award winner, Burns, is also on the staff, as his follow-up campaign includes a 2.20 ERA and a league-leading 134 strikeouts for the National League Central Division leading Brewers. The ace of the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves, Max Fried, also an All-Star for the first time, as is the MLB ERA leader, Gonsolin, 1.62 ERA, who's also tied with Justin Verlander for the MLB lead in wins at a perfect 11-0. For the reserves, you've got in the catcher position for the American League, Jose Trevino of the New York Yankees. And for the National League, it's Travis d'Arnaud of the World Series champion Atlanta Braves. Infielders, you have Louis Arias of the Minnesota Twins, Xander Bogaerts of the Boston Red Sox, Miguel Cabrera from the Detroit Tigers, Andres Jimenez and Jose Ramirez, both of the Cleveland Guardians. For the National League, it's Pete Alonso of the New York Mets, Nolan Arenado of the St. Louis Cardinals, C.J. Cron of the Colorado Rockies, Jeff McNeil of the New York Mets, Albert Pujols of the St. Louis Cardinals, and Dansby Swanson from the World Series champion Atlanta Braves. Reserve outfielders, Andrew Benintendi from the Kansas City Royals, Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins, Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners, George Springer of the Toronto Blue Jays, and Kyle Tucker of the Houston Astros. National League outfield reserves, Ian Happ of the Chicago Cubs, Starling Marte of the New York Mets, Kyle Schwarber of the Philadelphia Phillies, and Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals. And for the designated hitter in the American League, Yordan Alvarez of the American League champion Houston Astros. And there you go. Those are the rosters. So both are stacked to say the very least. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I like that American League starting lineup just a little bit more than the National League lineup. And besides, the American League has been dominant in this All-Star game as of late. And I know they're on a massive roll right now. I think they've won. I know they're on a big win streak right now. They have currently won. They've currently won every All-Star game since 2013. They have won 8 straight All-Star games. The National League has not won an All-Star game since 2012, when they won 8-0 at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, which gave them 3 straight All-Star game wins. But every year since 2013, the American League has won the All-Star game. It's 8 right now. It's really 7-0-1 if you really think about it, because of the fact that the 2020 game was canceled because of the very late start to that season, that COVID-induced 60-game season, which we were very, very blessed and fortunate to have, to say the very least. And the American League leads the National League in this All-Star Game series 46-43 with two ties, 1961 and, of course, the infamous tie in 2002 in Milwaukee. And the American League has outscored the National League in runs 378-372. Very close. Dodger Stadium this year, and then next year, it'll be at T-Mobile Park in Seattle. 2024 and 2025 have yet to be announced, but they did announce that 2026, the 2026 game will be at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. So the Tampa Bay Rays are the only current MLB city that has not yet hosted an All-Star game. And in addition to Tropicana Field in St. Pete, Citizens Bank, Truist Park, the new Yankee Stadium, and Globe Life Field in Texas are the only current venues that have not yet hosted an All-Star game. Phillies, Braves, Yankees, and Rangers have all hosted the game at previous stadiums. Citizens Bank Park in 2026 is the only one of these scheduled to host a future game. So those are some interesting little stats there. So it's going to be fun. It's always fun, and we'll see it all go down Tuesday night. So Michael Bullock, I know that was a lot of insight and rosters and starters between the starters and the reserves and all that, but you heard all the names, you heard all the rosters. So what are your thoughts on all of it?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, the American League roster looks a lot better than the National League. I mean, they're definitely loaded with a lot of good players. I mean, obviously, you got three guys on the Red Sox, and Martinez, Devers, and Bogarts. And, of course, your Yankees, they got some guys not only hitting-wise, but also from a pitching standpoint. I mean, that's not to say that the National League doesn't have a good roster. They do as well. But I just think that the American League is loaded just a little more. So, yeah, the American League has won so many of these All-Star games. And, of course, so you basically pretty much said everything, Florio. And so all I can say is can't wait for Tuesday night. And I'm really hoping it's a good All-Star game. So that being said, let's put a bow on this, Florio.
Yes, sir. And, of course, you and I will be hoping for our respective teams' representatives to do well. My 6 Yankees, and I don't know how I got to count and see how many your Red Sox made it, but I know the Yanks got 6, and that's it. So we'll get into that down the road. But for right now, that will put the bow on this edition of TXN Sports World. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in, as always. So we'll be back with you tomorrow night, 11 p.m., hopefully on MF's channel, Braves Fan 95, for another edition of the Cerebral Smack Talk, as we will review Friday Night SmackDown and an AEW Rampage, as always. And maybe MF will share his Big 3 basketball report in a special crossover. We'll see. And that'll be tomorrow. And then do it all again Monday night. We got Ridiculously Raw. Monday Night Raw, as always, along with my latest Tony's take on Impact Wrestling and NXT Level Up. Wednesday Night Madness, NXT 2.0. AEW Dynamite Night 2 of Fyter Fest. And then on this program next week, we will have our recap of the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game. And MF will also have his, provided MF is on, he'll have his latest Big 3 basketball report on that. And then we will close it out with our recap of the 2022 ESPY Awards. ESPY Awards will be handed out this Wednesday night. So we'll get into all that next week here on TXN Sports World. And then obviously Cerebral Smack Talk again. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, hopefully on MF's channel, Braves 95, Braves Fan 95 tomorrow night at 11. It's Anthony Florio here for Michael Bullock, and in spirit, good old MF Michael Fletcher and the First Lady Dee Dee Woodson. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up, Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday. And until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk, you've been watching TXN Sports World right here on the Zone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio. So long. Bye, everybody. Bye.